In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Law of New Jersey, notice of this June 25th, 2020 meeting of the Bridgewater Raritan Board of Education was provided on June 23rd, 2020 by sending a 48-hour written notice to the Courier News, Star Ledger, Bridgewater Township Clerk, Raritan Borough Clerk, and by posting on the bulletin board in the Harmon V. Wade Administration Building. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mr. Joshi.
Present.
Mr. Malik. Mr. Malik is here. Mr. Singer.
Here.
Mrs. Hurley. Mrs. Hurley. No?
She said she may be a little bit late. She'll join as soon as she can.
Okay. Mr. Walker.
Here.
Mrs. Mead.
Here.
Mrs. Gladstone.
Here.
Mrs. Barlow.
Here. Okay. We're up to the closed session now, whereas discussion by the board is required on matters that are exceptions to the requirement that a public body hold its meetings in public, and whereas the topics for discussion are personnel and BRSA grievance appeal, whereas it is expected that the details of the discussion may be made public as soon as the issues may be acted upon publicly. Be it resolved that the board enter into closed session at this time.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we are now in closed session. Good evening, everyone. I apologize for the delay. Our closed session went a little bit longer than anticipated. We are now up to item 6 on the agenda, the superintendent's report. Dr. Lazovic?
Thank you, Ms. Barlow. I wanted to say thank you. Thank you to everyone for the chance to work in BR these past 4 years. This community, these students and families, with this administration and staff, and my central office colleagues, it has truly been an enriching and rewarding time. I want to thank the board, all the board members with whom I've worked over the past 4 years, for the opportunity to be here as a part of BR. I can tell you from my perspective, it seems like a much longer time than 4 years since we spent a spring in the high school media center creating a new strategic plan. And since that time, it has truly been a whirlwind. For the board, when we began with squirrels, if you remember, and every year we worked hard to try and keep our focus on the students. And together, I do believe we've certainly set a clear and new direction. I think we've accomplished a great deal. And more importantly, I think together we've set the foundation for even greater things to come here in BR. I certainly wish all of you the best and thank you for your collaboration. As far as information for the board, we had our final September meeting today. With Administration Association leadership. Dr. Ficara was present as well, working to ensure that we can have as smooth and successful transition as possible, especially given all the unknowns and moving pieces involved in preparing for September. All of our 6 area leaders were present. We confirmed the process and the structure, as well as the communication that will be going out across the district. A great deal of collaboration occurred in a very short amount of time this morning, and a clear plan was set so that there's a great deal of work that not only BR but every district is engaged in right now. But we wanted to solidify the structure and all of the specific responsibilities so that with everything moving at the same time, we could ensure effective planning. I want to thank everyone in our community for the work, their commitment through what has been certainly an out of the ordinary ending to our year. our building administration across the district, the students and staff within our television production department, the board members and students who recorded videos, as well as the entire community for participating as they could with our celebrations of all of our students who are moving up, all the achievements that happen through a school year and at the end, and certainly for the senior class of 2020. Which brings me to our continuing graduation plans for the class of 2020. I speak daily with Dr. Ezell, who continues to energetically lead the high school team. They are working within the guidelines provided by the governor to set up an in-person ceremony based on survey responses from senior students and their families. We are trying, as at this point, to meet the needs they have expressed, which would be to hold as few ceremonies as possible while getting as many students together at the same time with 2 guests per student. The parameters, those are the parameters that we are trying to achieve within the guidelines as they exist. Thanks to the connections from parents in the community, as well as the township leadership, we've been working with the leaders of Somerset, the Somerset Patriots. They have been incredibly gracious. And just today, we received another email from the facilities manager updating us in the process. That email specifically states that the stadium has only been given approval for up to 500 people in the park at any one time, that they've submitted their plan and they're still waiting to hear back on approval of this up to 500 person gathering. That means, as I guess they've had their conversations and he puts in his email, that this would mean we'd have to have at least 2 ceremonies. 2 of ceremonies would be just students and staff to make this happen and getting the greatest number of students together as possible. And as he says, unless the further guidance comes over the coming weeks. Even his comment was that the process has been slow, connecting with the governor's office to ensure that this is all allowed. They talked about specific dates, and what we're trying to do, as I mentioned, is get all this information up on one page. So as it's changing, we had nothing yet to confirm, but we look to release that website soon. If there were 2 graduation ceremonies, they are hopeful that they will be both early in the morning. And as we had mentioned publicly before, we were looking at the week of July 20th. It looks as if it will either most likely be the 22nd or 23rd. I say that, please, with the acknowledgement that this is not confirmed yet. They are unbelievable partners, and we want to work with them. But I just wanted to have everyone have that update. Dr. Ezell, as soon as we get this information confirmed, we'll get this out and up on the website. Speaking of the website, the last thing I did want to talk about was I want to thank all of our central office administrators, our supervisors, specifically Ms. Jones and Ms. Mattia, who have led the effort to put together an unprecedented amount of summer resources for our students K through 12. They have a message coming out tomorrow that will come from our building principals to specific student and family populations, wishing everyone a wonderful summer, hoping they get some time to relax, but knowing that we're coming out of distance learning and that this is going to be a unique summer and most certainly a unique September, that we're providing summer learning opportunities for students who may choose, families who may choose to explore if they wish. These are not mandatory. They are meant to enrich, build upon, and keep folks excited and connected to the curriculum. Again, they're not mandatory. This actually already exists on our website. That was the first page we wanted to make sure we got up. It has taken the place of our spring break webpage, and now it is the summer break webpage. It includes all of the emergency contact information, online supports for families, as well as other fun activities that are not directly connected to our curriculum, as well as a content area by content area guide for parents and students that connects them to meaningful activities, fun activities, exciting activities that are directly connected to our curriculum and can help them stay connected to the academic piece through the summer months. I do want to convey that we have allowed our student accounts to stay open so that people are connected. We have allowed students and families who have borrowed district devices through this pandemic to keep those devices. If students are not returning to district, obviously we've been working with them to make sure those devices come back. But overall, it's been an unbelievably heavy lift, and our staff, our administrators, have come through, in my mind, with flying colors for this district, and the community and the students have followed right along. Were there bumps? Absolutely. There will always be, but together we were able to ride those bumps out. Moving forward, while those accounts stay active, I want to be clear that though we're not obligated to, the district provides filters during the school year that look at student communication for concerning content, whether it's self-harm, students struggling, violent language, or HIB, or harassment, and those are flagged so that staff members, student support staff members, are able to make contact and make sure that everyone is safe and well. It was incredibly important to have these in place while we were working through distance learning, because almost all communication was in some way, shape, or form digital. I say all this because this is an extra protection that the district provides for our students during the school year. However, due to constraints and legal issues, that even though people are staying connected, it needs to be made clear that we will not be running those programs because we do not have the staff over the summer months, as well as there are issues with the connectivity of our filters. And so those will be put back into place in September. We hope that everyone uses the district system for school-related activities and stays safe. If you have questions, comments, or concerns, our distance learning tech support is still available throughout the summer. All the resources that Ms. Maddie, our supervisors, Ms. Jones helped put together will only continue to grow, and something that we can use not only through the summer, but for years to come. Together, we will continue to do all we can to prepare for the summer and whatever September may bring. I just want to say I wish everyone the best moving forward, say thank you one more time, and I hope that everyone stays safe. Ms. Barlow.
Jackie, you're muted. Jackie, you're
Are
muted.
people able to hear me okay?
I think she's having trouble.
All right. I could step in while she tries to get back on. I'll start with my vice president report. As soon as I see her, as soon as I see Jackie back on, and then she'll go back to her president's report. I just want to use this as my this negotiations chair report that on the agenda tonight will be approving the BRSA. There's Jackie. You know what? Jackie, are you there?
Yes, I am. I apologize. I
Come
hit
back
the
to
wrong button.
All right. I just started vice president's report, but you take it away for the president's report now.
Okay, thank you. So thank you very much, Dr. Lazovic. I want to congratulate again our 8th graders and our seniors who graduated earlier this week. BRTV did an outstanding job assembling the virtual ceremonies. It was evident the amount of time and effort that went into making it a professional quality production. In addition, I was extremely impressed with the class speakers. I could not live up to their level of excellence, both in composure and content. I also want to thank our administration, teachers, and staff for bringing this difficult school year to a successful finish. We genuinely appreciate their ability to change overnight to help our students succeed. Thank you and enjoy a well-deserved break. Next, I would like to welcome Jean Lee, our newly elected board member as of last night. Ms. Lee will be sworn in once the background check is completed. We look forward to working with her and adding new perspectives to our decision-making process. I also want to thank again everyone that took the time to apply for the opening. The strength of the candidate pool made this an exceedingly difficult decision. I hope they will continue to be engaged in volunteering to support the work of the district. Last but not least, I would like to say goodbye to Dr. Lazovic, as this is his last board meeting with us before moving to his new position starting July 1st. We had a small gathering of 11 people yesterday evening to say goodbye. It was wonderful to see everyone. We stayed outdoors following safety protocols, using hand sanitizer, social distancing, etc. But I also wanted to say goodbye in this venue with the community. We have had a great 4 years under Dr. Lazovic's leadership. He has challenged us all to try to reach new heights and to challenge the status quo, even when it causes us to move beyond our comfort zone. I hope we can maintain his legacy that we will teach them one and all, young to old and big to small, inspire, engage, and educate, improve our world, and make it great. Challenge all to grow, exceed, so one day they will take the lead. Dr. Lazovic, thank you for all you have done for Bridgewater Raritan Regional School District. Goodbye, good luck, and good health. And of course, stay in touch. And now we are up to the Vice President's report.
Thanks, Jackie. And I would also like to echo sincere appreciation for the hours of hard work that Dr. Lazovic has put in these past 4 years. It went very fast. It was a pleasure to be on the board while he was at the helm and with the Wade Building. And I think the district has come a long way. And I echo what Jackie said before. And moving on, and I wish him luck. And it is close, so stay in touch. Drop by one evening, maybe when we're back at Wade in person. See you in the audience. The Vice President's report, I just want to highlight the BRSA, the Bridgewater Raritan Supervisor Association, and BOE contract is on for approval tonight. It was ratified by the association a week or so ago, and I wanted to thank Mr. Mike Rapeau and the other supervisors that we were in negotiations with over the past few months. And that's it. We have a retreat on July 28th, probably remote. We have to still get guidance about if we're going to have remote or not. We don't know yet, but just want to remind the board about that. And that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gladstone. And next up, we've got the committee reports. First, Academic Committee, Mr. Malik.
Hi, so we met on June 17th at 6:30. In attendance was myself, Ms. Gladstone, Ms. Hurley, Ms. Jones, Dr. Lazovic, Dr. Ficara, Mr. Poe, and Mr. Moriello. First, we had the math pilot recommendations. Mr. Poe and Mr. Moriello joined the academic committee to answer any questions related to the mathematics resource pilot and recommendations, all of which were sent in advance to the committee. While the committee supported all recommendations, especially in light of the pandemic, distance learning, and the potential for online resources to adapt to individuals' needs and provide meaningful support, there were some questions about geometry. Mr. Moriello explained that the problem with the current resource isn't in the change from Common Core standards to NJSLS, where there are not substantial differences, but actually in the initial change from NJ standards to Common Core. Additionally, he explained that the previous online resource, which had not been renewed for 2 years, was similar to a PDF of the textbook and not the type of online resource currently being recommended, which includes videos, tutorials, hints, and feedback. Teachers will also use the resource to gather information to assess student understanding and create targeted groups. The committee discussed the importance of adapting one complete, coherent, and consecutive text resource across grade levels, as a coherent, well-articulated curriculum is an essential tool for guiding teacher collaboration, goal setting, analysis of student thinking, and implementation. We currently use 6 different publishers for 4,050 students and 129 teachers. Some of that are not aligned to current standards, and having a consistent program will benefit those students and teachers. Big Ideas will be used for grades 6 through 8, Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. Before the mathematics supervisors left, they explained how students were identified for 4A in math and briefly shared insights related to data reports that show a little over 50% of students in grade 7 and 8 placed at a grade level rather than advanced in mathematics. This is an area that one member suggested we monitor. Next, we had the gifted and talented report by subgroup. The committee discussed the purpose of the reports, noting that there have not been any real shifts in the last 5 years. Each year, a similar percentage, about 20% of students apply for the AI program in 2nd grade, and of that percentage, a similar percentage of students are accepted, and again, about 20%. The percentage of students who apply each subsequent year typically drops, but the overall number of students in the program increases. The demographic report also shows that trends remain the same across a 5-year period regarding students who apply to the program. There is also data that shows consistent trends across the primary schools. The committee discussed the importance of revisiting these annual reports and perhaps asking different questions and looking at different data sets. Also, the committee again discussed the reality that the application to the AI program is at a parent's request, and the committee discussed the possibility of shifting to a different screening method, in parentheses, universal, prior to program review of gifted and talented. Next, we went over the AI standing committee meeting minutes. Ms. Jones shared Mr. Matonis' minutes from the AI standing committee meeting, which she attended. Teachers and parents shared feedback related to distance learning. They discussed the possibility of a virtual AI orientation for parents and students new to the program. They also discussed whether AI testing might be impacted by distance learning, but as those decisions will not be made until the fall, the conversation is tabled for now. Next, we had permission to conduct research study. A staff member requested permission to complete a research study that would involve Bridgewater area students, which was denied for reasons of confidentiality and potential liability. And finally, we had the other topics. Dr. Lazovic shared the roadmap that is currently being used to plan for September. And in addition, it's not in the minutes itself in the drive, but I also, at the request of another board member, I brought up policy 2431, which is the board shall approve annually a program of interscholastics and reviewing the facilities that we use to make sure that we safeguard both players and spectators. So I brought that to the attention of Ms. Jones and Dr. Lazovic that currently isn't being followed. And then I also asked about racial bias training, professional development, and Ms. Jones plans on getting back to me. And then we adjourned at 8:15 p.m. Any questions?
I have one, Zach. I didn't get a chance to look at all the sub data, but seeing that the demographic data has been the same for 5 years, how does that correspond representing our demographics of the district? And then also, are we advocating for any minority groups to get better access so that they apply to AI and give those opportunities? Are we doing outreach, things like that?
So I can definitely answer the second question. I think by shifting to universal screening, that'll help solve that problem of like requiring parents who don't know enough about the AI program that they need to apply, or like how to get into the program. So like with universal screening, then it cuts off the middleman, which would be the parents, and then it makes it easier to access. I don't know off the top of my head regarding the demographic data itself, but I'm pretty sure that it's underrepresenting Black and Latino students, and then I'm not sure about the representation, like if there's over underrepresentation for whites and Asians.
Well, and I think that was a question the committee had that's supposed to come back to us.
Okay.
Yes, we wanted in the discussion, we talked about having other forms of data actually that, can give us different information, because we talked about if we're looking at the same reports over 5 years and what they're showing us is, okay, it's the same reports over 5 years. We need to start to look at data that's going to shift things and start to move things. One Zach brought up was, the idea of universal screening, but also just how we can start to use data differently to impact, instruction, and then of course, student achievement. So we need different reports.
And I guess advocating or some way to reach out. The universal is great, but just advocating that kids, asking kids to achieve and strive to do their best. I'm just wondering how we do that better. Okay,
right.
Thank you.
I also think that there is an inherent issue that makes some parents a little hesitant to apply for the AI program, and it's that they might have to send their kids away from their home school to a different school. So that also will definitely limit the amount of parents wanting to opt into apply for it to begin with.
Well, that program review is next year, correct, Karen?
Yes, it's supposed to be in January. We're supposed to begin.
If whatever next year looks like.
Screening.
What?
You'll be beginning the universal screening this school year?
We're going to look at universal screening in the beginning of this school year because we're implementing it as part of the intervention program. Yeah. And then what we had discussed last time that's right, you weren't at the academic committee. What we discussed was potentially not waiting until we start program evaluation for gifted and talented for using universal screening. So in other words, we discussed whether or not we might want to start to look at other ways to identify kids who we might want to test for this program prior to even getting to the gifted and talented program evaluation, because as Zach pointed out, right now, the way that students are applying is, we send out information. There are parent nights about this, and then parents have to make the determination that they want their child tested for this to see whether or not they would be eligible for the program. And so if you're not a parent who understands that, gets the information, advocates for this, you might have a child who certainly is eligible, but we're not identifying that child right now because it's dependent upon the parent versus us as a district doing a universal screening. So we're targeting or looking for students who might have this potential.
Yeah, and I think that's great that if we could do that, that's a big step in the right direction. Were there any other questions for Mr. Malik? AJ?
Yeah, and the screening will happen during regular class instructions, or is this going
Yes,
to be like
the screening, right. So right now, people apply and they do have like testing on Saturday, and we look at COGAT. So the universal screening would be the initial screening where we even identify kids who might be eligible for the program. And we haven't developed it all yet. That's part of the work actually that we're doing this summer for the summer curriculum project. So that's part of something David Matonis is working on as one of his projects that's listed on our addendum actually. So we have to kind of figure out how we're going to do it still.
So kind of those programs are similar. They're both intervention programs to help kids achieve better.
Yeah,
So
they are. They are.
Yeah, they are. So,
yep.
So that's nice to see the synergy there.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Malik? Okay, next we have Mr. Joshi with Community Relations.
Yeah, we met on June 16th. In attendance was myself, Dr. Lazovic, and Mr. Walker. The number one item was communication. Current topics of discussions were the committee reviewed the current communications from the district and each building regarding the end of the year. Members also discussed the outgoing survey from the high school to seniors asking for feedback on the graduation tour and the possibility of in-person celebration in July. The results and information on potential events will be shared through a single website. And then next on the item was update on summer and September opening. The district's September team met on Monday, June 15th. The team includes the current and incoming superintendent, Dr. Fakara, central office administrators, and association leaders. The team reviewed the roadmap that is being used to structure preparation for the next school year. 6 areas of focus were identified, each with its own list of critical actions, and individual administrators were assigned to each area. The group reviewed the plan to move forward. The district is prepared to open either fully or through distance learning or in person in September. The district is reflecting on lessons learned from our time in distance learning these past 2 months in order to improve learning moving forward. But the focus of the September team is to prepare for the middle ground, opening in a modified fashion based on provided health restrictions. And the team continues to meet weekly to coordinate planning. And I believe tomorrow the governor is going to announce something for September. So a lot of these things will be a little bit more clear. The third topic of discussion was the need for a communication director for the future. Even have time to manage the communication from the district, including social media, website, and other items. And we adjourned at 5:30 in the evening. Our next meeting is July 14th at 4:30.
Any questions for Mr. Joshi?
AJ,
Yeah.
With regard to the senior surveys, is there a timeline for when the survey is going to be posted to the website? The results?
It's, last time we discussed, I think, Russ, you were gathering the data you had indicated, so I'm not sure the timeline of that.
Actually, since our meeting and working with Dr. Fakara, they reopened the survey. And so we have even further results so that they're going through that at some point when the idea being, Mr. Singer, that when we push when we publish one web page for just information on the potential in-person graduation, they'll include the data right on that web page.
Any other questions for Mr. Joshi? Okay, thank you. And next we've got FFT with Mr. Walker.
We did not have a meeting. Our next meeting is July 13th, and we need to figure out a time. Probably 6 o'clock again, or 4. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Walker. Next, we've got personnel with Ms. Gladstone.
Thank you, Mrs. Barlow. I just wanted to mention that at that meeting, we met on June 17th at 4:30 in attendance, Mrs. Barlow, Mr. Joshi, Dr. Lazovic, Dr. Vellani, and for part of the meeting was Dr. Ficarra, the incoming interim superintendent. He did not stay when it came to a topic that had to do with personnel matters. First up was the review of the personnel addendum. Dr. Lazovic and Dr. Vellani review with the committee a draft of the personnel addendum that is on for tonight. We discussed information related to reappointment of the BRSA staff members. And as I said, it's on for approval tonight. We had some policy updates. Dr. Lazovic and Dr. Vellani review with the committee a draft of policy and regulation 1581, which is domestic violence, and 1642, which is earned sick leave. Both are model policies from Strauss-Esme. The recommendation was to bring them to the full board for first reading, and they are on for tonight. Next, we had personnel matters that were brought to our attention. If Dr. Ficarra left the meeting for that portion of the meeting. We then had a school safety update. Dr. Lazovic and Dr. Vellani shared with the committee information related to SROs and SLEOs. We looked at a job description that is on the approval on the agenda for tonight. Just to give a little more clarification on that part, the administration is working with the Bridgewater Police Department, but it's also exploring other options to ensure we're prepared for September. Dr. Vellani has received support from the county prosecutor's office, and under the guidance of the chief detective, is exploring ways to bring officers into the district. This includes the job description that I just mentioned, which is on for tonight. It was written in cooperation with the county office. The approval tonight will allow us to explore all options as we prepare. As we prepare for September. Sorry about that. Then we had a discussion on the committee calendar. We heard Dr. Vellani mention that usually at this time of year, we look over the policies that have to do with personnel, the 3000 and 4000 series. We discussed and decided that Dr. Vellani will review each of the policies and regulations listed and discuss at the July meeting if any needs to be updated. That's it. Our next meeting is July 13th at 4:30. We adjourned at 6:28. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gladstone. Next, we're up to the liaison and delegate reports. Does anyone have anything? Okay, seeing none, we're next up to our first opportunity for public comment. And I just want to mention for public comment, we're back to the previous way of doing things that will just have action items for the first opportunity for public comment, and then it will be open to any matters for the second opportunity for public comment. So individual, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Read it. Then I'll explain. Sorry.
Okay. Individual and or groups are invited to present their concerns, comments, and requests to the Board of Education at this time for action items only. In accordance with board policy, members of the public are allotted this opportunity to address the board for a maximum of 5 minutes during this period of the meeting. As this meeting is being conducted remotely as a virtual meeting, all public comments can be made by completing the form online. Board members are able to see all comments and will be posted for viewing at the appropriate point in the meeting.
And Ms. Barlow, there were 2 links provided on the YouTube. The first is for the first session, which was open until now. It will be closed. We will open the general comments form so people can start adding. There are 2 comments in the first form. And as the board members can see, I think both of them were actually meant for open public comments. So I will simply move those two comments to the top of the sheet when we display the second opportunity for public comment.
Okay, thank you. And so not seeing any other comments at this time, I'm going to close that section of the meeting. And we're now up to approval of minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a
Second.
Thanks. Any discussion? Okay, roll
Ms.
call,
Barlow, I'm
please.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
This was just for the minutes, correct?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay, thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Joshi?
Yeah.
Mr. Malik?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mrs. Hurley?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Mead?
Yes.
Mrs. Gladstone?
Yes.
Mrs. Barlow?
Yes, motion carries. Next, we're
Mrs.
up.
Barlow?
Yes.
That's where I want to jump in there. Sorry. Just as we move to personnel, I'm going to ask if a board member would be willing to make a motion for, before we motion to approve for personnel 2051, which is the, I'm sorry, 2050, which is the personnel addendum. I'm going to need a board member, please, to make a motion to remove item D6 from that addendum. We have constant ongoing conversations with staff members and candidates, and one has requested the removal of the name. So if we could have a board member just amend the addendum to remove D6 before you vote on it, please.
I move to amend D6.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? So that will be amended, and that was to remove D6, correct?
We have to vote?
Okay. Do we need a roll call vote, Mr. Stars?
Just better safe, yes.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Joshi?
Yes.
Mr. Malik?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mrs. Hurley?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Mead?
Yes.
Mrs. Gladstone?
Yes.
Mrs. Barlow?
Yes, motion carries. Now, is there a motion for personnel 20-50 through 20-61, including that removal of D6?
So moved.
Second.
There are two links. provided
Any
on the YouTube.
discussion?
The first is for the first session, which was open
I was
until
looking
now.
for the personnel 20-51. Is it in there? I'm on the public website and ours. I don't see it.
It wouldn't be on the public. It would be, since it hasn't been voted on yet.
Okay.
I believe it was previously sent, no?
Do we need to redistribute that?
I am sending it now. Again, this is the
This is the BRSA contract.
yes. So this is the memorandum of agreement, which is just changing the duration from July 1st, 2019 and shall expire on June 30th, 2022, with salary increases of 2.25% for year one, 2.25% plus 4,500 to be distributed to 9 BRSA members in year two, 2.25 in year three with the same 4,500 to be distributed, and mutually agreed salary guides. All other terms and conditions shall remain.
Thank you, Peter.
Okay, any other discussion?
That was sent to us just now.
Yes.
I had a question on the
Mine didn't come.
on the
Yeah, mine didn't come either, so I'm not going to vote.
Jackie. I have a question on the security officer position.
Okay.
there is mention of a background check, but it doesn't really address the scope of the background check. I'm just curious as to whether whether the applicant would need to agree to a review of any prior employment records with any police department that they have, including any grievances that might have been filed.
So we would be, this background check, as I mentioned before, and as Ms. Gladstone mentioned, we're working with the county office on this one. So this would be the same vigorous background check that the officer would have to go to if they're applying through SLEO. And so I'm not sure that it necessarily includes a review of all those documents, Mr. Singer, but this is the most rigorous one that we can provide. It's what the police departments use.
Okay, thanks.
In terms of the personnel 20-51, Ms. Mead and I think Ms. Hurley.
I got it in another email. That's why I didn't see it.
Okay. Do you want us to maybe vote on that later in the meeting, or are you okay if we proceed?
It's not that long. I'm reading it right now.
I'm good.
I'm fine.
And I apologize. I don't know if people can hear the noise in my room. My dogs have decided to destroy the room while I'm doing the meeting. At any rate, is there, are we, any other discussion items? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Joshi,
Yes.
Mr. Malik,
Yes.
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mrs. Hurley,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Mead,
Yes.
Mrs. Gladstone,
Yes.
Mrs. Barlow.
Yes, motion carries. Next, we are up to curriculum, but there are no resolutions this evening. Next, we have business 20-127 through business 20-148. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second? Oh, was that you seconding, Mrs. Mead?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Yes, Mrs. Gladstone?
Thanks. On the bus contracts, what happens if we're in distance learning again with these contracted bus routes as far as our obligation?
We have put in, the attorney put in some language that will cover us that we would not be paying. It's basically a per diem rate.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one. I'm just trying to pull up the agenda at this point.
And I'm assuming the food services would be the same thing in the event that we do distance learning again?
Yes, that's outside the general operating budget.
Okay.
I found it. I have a question regarding 20-148, which for the BRMS track and field, the final payment. Are there any problems that need to be addressed with the contractor before final payment is made?
No, it was revisited by our engineer and our manager of buildings and grounds, and it's in good shape. And they did all the punch list items.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Joshi,
Yes.
Mr. Malik,
Yes.
Mr. Singer,
I'm going to abstain on 144, yes on the rest.
Mrs. Hurley,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes, but I'm going to have to abstain on business 20-143, 144, 145, and 147.
Mrs. Mead,
Yes.
Mrs. Gladstone,
Yes.
Mrs. Barlow.
Yes, motion carries. Next, we're up to special services, SS 20-38 and 39. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Am I correct in assuming that 20-38 is for the 2020 to 2021 school year?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Joshi?
Yes.
Mr. Malik?
Yeah.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mrs. Hurley?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Mead?
Yes.
Mrs. Gladstone?
Yes.
Mrs. Barlow?
Yes, motion carries. Next, we're up to other 20-39 through 20-41. Any discussion? I'm sorry, is there a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a question with regard to 20-41. The school grade report. I'm curious how the information is used and whether or not any deficiencies in the report have resulted in any training or other remediations.
So, Mr. Singer, I'm sorry, I saw your email. This happens twice a year. The group meets at least twice a year, and one of the things they do is not only compile this information, but then to reviewing the information, figure out how they plan better for the next 6 months. And so it has at times translated into training and other pieces, as well as just different kinds of communication within the district. It really is truly a self-assessment when we get these grades, and so it is a reflective piece, to your point, that has been used to in the past kind of spur growth, change. It's one of the reasons we've had attorneys in for trainings and the rest. It comes out of these kinds of conversations.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I had a question on, I guess maybe operationally on resolution 20-40. I know in the cases, the bus evacuation drills, we get notified and we approve them. And on these drills, is that something the board has to approve that these and certify that they're done, or is this the superintendent? I just see that we approve the bus drills. I don't see we ever see these actually that they get done. I assume they are, but you're certifying it, but it never comes to the board as like an agenda item.
We keep those lists as we get them from the building, so they certainly could be reviewed, but they're not part of the MOA.
Okay, and I didn't know. I mean, the bus drills, but by policy, you have to, right? So, all right, and that's something we should think about in the future.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Joshi?
Yes.
Mr. Malik?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mrs. Hurley?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Mead?
Yes.
Mrs. Gladstone?
Yes.
Mrs. Barlow?
Yes, motion carries. And next, we're up to policy 20-23. Is there a motion?
So moved.
In a second.
Second. I wasn't a mover.
And any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question on 1581. In the policy, it says that an employee can take the unpaid leave, but they have to make the request to have that unpaid leave. My question is, to whom do they make the request? And does that person already need to know what it's for in terms of what statute it's coming under? Because I'm concerned about privacy concerns in terms of keeping the information confidential as to the circumstances surrounding the need for the leave.
Mr. Singer, I'm sorry, I was pulling it up. Can you just restate the specific question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, yes, and hopefully better this time. So under the statute, the employee taking leave under NJ Safe has to put in the request for that leave. I'm curious, who do they put that request into? And is it the HRO officer, or is it someone else might open up the number of people that are aware of the situation? I'm concerned about privacy concerns regarding that.
Any specific leave go through the Human Resources Office, and they're at this point all confidential secretaries and administrators.
So is that the HRO, or is that
The Human Resources Office or officer? Yes, that's what we're talking about. Yes, that's what the policy refers to.
Great, thanks.
Any other discussion or questions?
Mr. Joshi?
Yes.
Mr. Malik?
Yes.
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mrs. Hurley,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Mead,
Yes.
Mrs. Gladstone,
Yes.
Mrs. Barlow.
Yes, motion carries. We're now up to the second opportunity for public comment, and this is on any matters. Individuals and/or groups are invited to present their concerns, comments, and requests to the Board of Education at this time for any matters. In accordance with board policy, members of the public are allotted this opportunity to address the board for a maximum of 5 minutes during this period of the meeting. As this meeting is being conducted remotely as a virtual meeting, all public comments can be made by completing the form online. Board members are able to see all comments and will be posted for viewing at the appropriate point in the meeting. And I know we do have a couple of comments from earlier, so we will be sharing those.
Yes, Ms. Barlow, I'm going to share my screen as we did previously. I'll leave a sufficient amount of time for it to be read, and then I will scroll down to the rest. And I've added the 2 comments from the earlier piece onto the open comment section so they can be read. The
Thank
board
you.
members, again, should have access to the document. Sorry about the spacing.
Oh.
I think you to move eventually, sooner rather than later.
Okay, Ms. Barlow, we are back to you.
Okay, thank you. We'll close the open public comment at this time. Next, we are up to old business. Does anyone have any old business to discuss?
I just wanted to know if there would be any we had the comments, but was there anything that could be addressed in the comments easily by administration that from the public comments, or no?
I was misquoted in the comments. I don't understand. We can go back to the transcript, and I'm not sure what the Breeze
Okay.
reported, but I was clear that as far as funds like Project Graduation, we don't have access to those. They're not district funds, which
Right.
was the whole point of my comment. As far as the gifts and the rest, that came out of money that was raised for the class of 2020 in the student activities account. As far as the live streaming questions, my understanding is that one of the reasons that TD Bank Ballpark was not only for safety reasons, but technology-wise, they would be able to live stream that. So answering that question. And the final one, I know that someone asked about community feedback in our September preparations. In all 6 areas of the roadmap, they talk about communication and community feedback. And so one of the things we talked about are the preparation of appropriate surveys and a way for community members, students of appropriate ages, as well as family members, to give us feedback as we start to plan. So it's going to be difficult. We have a short amount of time to get everything ready, but there is a step in the plan to make sure that we do hear from all stakeholders.
Great, thank you. Any other old business?
Hey,
Uh,
Jackie, I have 2 items I wanted to bring up on items that we just approved. So should that be new business? I guess so.
Okay,
Yes.
well, I don't see any other old business. So we're on to new business.
First, the job description for the security officer. I just would like to ask that the administration just hold off on, conducting interviews or filling positions, et cetera, until the interim superintendent, Dr. Ficarra, comes on board to have him involved.
Yeah, Ms. Gladstone, and just to confirm again, we're not looking to move rapidly forward with that, although we have a short time period. Certainly Dr. Ficarra will be part of the process. We simply want the job description approved because we don't have another board meeting until the end of July.
All right, but since it's approved, I didn't know the exact timeline, so I just wanted to make sure he's involved. And thank you. And also, Ms. Jones, maybe you could help or just a comment, Freckle software education was on for tonight. That's these math software. That's good. I'm glad that we saw that and approved it. But I just remembered that in our academic committee meeting, when we heard from the supervisors, that I thought they were thinking of not using that because the new Big Ideas program has all that software. And I was actually thinking, and I think I did express it at the meeting, if we could still use that, it's another resource. So was that the ultimate decision to keep, because we just approved the purchasing of that for a year. So do we intend on using that Freckle software for the year going forward, even with Big Ideas?
Yes, and in some instances we would continue to use it anyway because it's at a different grade level. Okay. So we would be using Freckle anyway at a primary grade level.
Right.
And then the changes with Big Ideas are starting in the intermediate school and going up.
Okay.
So it's still going to be a resource for us.
Right. Thanks for the clarification.
Yep, no problem.
That's all, Jackie.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Jackie, I don't know if you can see everyone, Jackie, but Zach does.
Okay, no, I can
I'm sorry,
now.
brother. Okay.
Okay. I've been thinking about talking about this for a while, and I think now is the time to have this conversation. The context for what prompted me to speak specifically tonight is an Instagram page I found recently called BIPOC_@_BARM. The public Instagram page is where current and former students have been anonymously sending in racism experienced at BARM, ranging from microaggressions to macroaggressions at the hands of both students and staff. The Instagram page is set up where there is a link for a Google form where individuals put their email and then write their experiences, and the owner of the account will then post that experience onto the account. The last time I checked the page, there were 80 plus posts detailing racism individuals have experienced at BARM, but I assume that there are many more by now. I implore everyone to read these posts, especially board members and other administrators. You'll be shocked to read their stories. But I don't need an Instagram account to tell me that there have been countless incidents of racism that have taken place at BARM. A significant portion have gone unreported over the years, but have left countless individuals with emotional scars. As a former student, I can attest to racism I faced while at BARM. For those in the public who don't know, I'm mixed race. I'm half Pakistani, half white. While I was still a student in the district, I faced both microaggressions and macroaggressions due to my race. I do not feel comfortable explaining the details in depth in such public setting, but from personal experiences, seen and unseen, I can tell you that racism is embedded in the district, and the experiences posted on the Instagram page are similar to some of the same experiences I faced. The racism that I have experienced pales in comparison to that faced by other minorities, many who face these encounters on a near daily basis. I can never speak for their experiences, but I can speak for what I have gone through. This is why listening to the voices of those who claim racism and discrimination, especially from students, is so important. This is why the Board of Education needs to implement reforms to tackle racism and discrimination in Bridgewater. Here are some measures that we as the Board of Education can do. 1, require more racial bias training and increase race-related professional development for all teachers, support staff, and administrators. 2, make it more widely known for students on how to report an HIB, including that teachers can be reported for HIB. 3, reform how punishments are administered. For example, use trauma-informed approaches to school discipline and the overall school environment, or increase the use of restorative justice. A National Education Policy Center study found that the use of restorative justice reduced exclusionary discipline and narrowed racial disparities in punishment. Racial disparities in punishments administered is an issue at BR as seen through the corrective action plan the district is currently on. 4th, hire an outside consultant like Watchung Hills to help with the education of race and how to have these conversations in a productive manner. 5th, increase mental health resources and guidance counselors. 6th, increase visibility and access to mental health resources. 7th, check for and recognize our own implicit biases. 8, work with the union leadership on how to improve equity in the classroom, grade-wide, school-wide, and district-wide. 9th, address the achievement gap. For example, by removing requirements to enroll into honors and AP classes. 10th, have more minority pieces of literature embedded in the curriculum. The list I just gave you is by no means an exhaustive list and should only be the start for the reforms that need to take place. We all have a moral responsibility to tackle inequalities, and we have a duty as a Board of Education members. The second bullet in the Code of Ethics for School Board members states, quote, I will make decisions in terms of the education welfare of children and will seek to develop and maintain public schools that meet the individual needs of all children regardless of their ability, race, creed, sex, or social standing. These reforms are needed to fulfill our responsibility of improving the lives and quality of education we give to all students. We are supposed to teach them one and all, but we can't if students face racism at the hands of both their peers and staff. By not enacting reforms, we fail as a district and as individuals. We all have the power to break the cycle of racism, but if we don't, we condemn the next generation to more unnecessary pain and suffering only due to the color of their skin or race. This responsibility is not only limited to the Board of Education, but every staff member in BRRSD and every community member in Bridgewater and Raritan. One of the reasons I ran for the Board of Ed was because I wanted to give back to BR by making this district better using my personal experiences as a student to guide decision making. My experiences, which include a lot of positives, also has its negatives, and the racism I faced is part of it. The district must act now to ensure a brighter, more equitable, inclusive future for all. Thank you.
Zach, can I have that address again, please, for the Instagram?
Could you please send it to all of us? I know I'd be interested in it too. I'm not sure I know how to access it, and I would actually also like a copy of what you just said sent to all of us.
Yeah, no problem. The Instagram page, I'll try to say it slowly, is BIPOC_AT_BR.
Thank you.
So that was VIPOC_AT_BR.
Yeah.
Okay.
And do you know who owns the site, and how we can validate what's on it?
No, so there is no way to validate the specific experiences and specific examples that students give. But when I showed one of my friends, another graduate, the page, when she was looking through it, she's Indian, and she said, "Oh yeah, I've experienced this a lot too. Like that's BR racism."
The other thing I actually want to mention about things like implicit bias, I know at one of the New Jersey School Board Association sessions that I went to, Harvard has implicit bias things that you can take like to assess yourself.
Mhm.
And it's, just on your own. It doesn't go to anyone. But I'd really, if you just Google Harvard implicit bias, I'd really encourage people to go out and do it. Because whether we like it or not, and whether we want to see it in ourselves or not, I think we do harbor certain things, and I think it's good to understand. Any other discussion? I have a different topic, but anything else on what Mr. Malik has shared?
Yeah, I just want to, I'm on one of our school websites right now, and I'm trying to find the HIB form so that, if you can, so students can enter their HIBs or parents can. And I mean, it's not readily apparent. It seems to me like it's something that should be directly on the student's webpage and the parents' webpage. I understand that it's under the wellness and under HIB, but it should be a more prevalent link, I think.
Anything else on this topic?
Zach, thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
I think that was amazing. And I know Jackie asked you to send it to everybody. I think you should get ready to have it published or public somewhere. I don't know if you have like a Facebook page, you can make a public post. I think that should be read by everybody around. That was so well written. It was so well thought out, and it probably stirred up a lot of feelings from past, and I really commend you for doing that. And I think that we have a lot of we have to look inside ourselves now. I mean, I think it's been hidden. Thank you for bringing that out, and maybe that could be talked about at a retreat for a future goal, for a not too distant goal, a very short-term goal to get started on, to work on. So thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you, Zach. Good.
You lead by example, Zach. Thank you for bringing that forward, and well said.
Well done.
Yeah, thanks as well. And important discussions to have. The other item, did anyone else have any other new business? I also wanted to bring up, I know there's been some discussion about at what point should we go back to in-person meetings. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. In the back of my mind, I was kind of targeting maybe our July 21st meeting. I'm a little bit concerned though, given, things are starting to explode in some parts of the country, but it's not here right now. But I just wanted to get people's reactions, and we don't have to decide now. We could decide like 4 or 5 days before the meeting, because we know conditions are changing, rapidly. So it's hard to predict where we'll be at, but just want to get other people's thoughts on it.
Well, I find this very difficult. And if we could, even if we still took public comment remotely, but we could at least meet in person, if there's some sort of hybrid thing we could do, that would be helpful for me.
And I think that's a question. I don't know, Dr. Lazovic, if you know the answer, or if we need to go to Dr. Celso to find out if we could do the hybrid where we're in person, but the community is remote.
I don't have a specific answer as far as legally speaking, but just on my understanding of the guidelines and we talked about this in our county meeting. What's today? Sorry, yesterday. And districts are exploring different things, including a conversation to Ms. Hurley's point, trying to get the board members in a room 6 feet from each other and then live streaming the meeting and using the same type of public comment approach. But what I think we should do is ask Dr. Celso for specific feedback.
Okay, so we can follow up with that to see if we can do the hybrid. Any other input on this? Ms. Mead?
Yeah, I'm a fan of trying to get back, back at least us together. I think we can do it in a safe way. Go to Home Depot, go to Target, go to the store, that we can sit in a room and be six feet away to do certain business. Maybe not the easier meetings if you wanted to, but I think we should, at least for us, to try to get there. It would be helpful to me as well.
Okay, and I can definitely, or go through Dr. Lazovic, talk to Dr. Celso about whether this is an option. And that would make a lot more sense to me in terms of, it's a much more limited audience. And I agree, we could do the distancing required.
Can our meetings be outside?
I'm sorry?
Can our meetings, bearing weather, we could have them outside also?
The only part I would be concerned about is the closed session item.
I agree with that part, yes. We might have to move for that.
Okay. Ms. Gladstone?
I think it's wise, like you said, we don't have to decide till a few days before. As much as people want to get back, I think we have to, I want to be more cautious, because it's one thing about walking into Home Depot, you're in and you're out and you're walking past. And the thing about it is sitting in a room, it's to be protected, it's covering. We're all covering in the stores, our face mask. It's duration, how much time you're sitting in one place, and it's distance. So, if we could really be at least 6 feet apart, but if it's like it is now, I think we should all have our masks on. And how are we going to it's easier to see each other right now without a mask on from home. So I'd just be really cautious about that.
And Mr. Malik, did I see your hand up?
Yeah, so just like two possible ideas is, instead of having our meetings in the small cafeteria, especially over the summer, what we could do is we could have them in either the big cafeteria or in the high school auditorium. I think that would make it easier for everyone to socially distance and have as many members of the public in the meetings. I'm a little averse to having it in the auditorium, just because I don't like the idea of the board being up on a stage and then the rest of the community kind of being below us in a sense. But I think those are two options if we want to move forward with this.
The other thing I just want to say, I personally do feel that if any board member or whoever, the superintendent or assistant whoever participates as the board at these meetings, I don't know everyone's health conditions. I don't know who they need to go home to. So to me, if there's even one person that has a problem, I don't feel we can do it. But if we are all, feel it's a reasonable situation, I have no problem proceeding. But I do think we need to be respectful that if there's even one person that has an issue, I don't want to put anyone at risk. Okay. So why don't we kind of keep that in the back of our minds, and as we'll get the answer from Dr. Celso in terms of the hybrid situation, and we'll kind of monitor how things go. And maybe, as I said, 4 to 7 days beforehand, because we have to change the public notice, we can revisit this question. We won't be meeting, but obviously we'll have a good idea from the news what's going on. Any other new business? Okay. So at this point, we need to go back into closed session. Whereas discussion by the board is required on matters that are exceptions to the requirement that a public body hold its meeting in public. And whereas the topics for discussion are the Superintendent Evaluation Conference, whereas it is expected that the details of the discussion may be made public as soon as the issues may be acted upon publicly. Be it resolved that the board enter into closed session at this time.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
We are now in closed session.
All in favor?
Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We are now in closed session, and I hope the community has a good evening. you.